Welcome to the 3030 Health Podcast. The following discussion is for education and entertainment. It is not intended to diagnose or treat disease. Please do not apply any of this information without first discussing it with your doctor. Here is your host, Guillermo Ruiz.
Hello everyone, my guest today is Chef Lance Roll. Chef Lance has been professionally cooking for 25 years. He became a certified executive chef through the American Culinary Federation in 2005. He was also a professional chef instructor at San Diego Culinary Institute, where he was dubbed the Flavor Chef. His cooking was transformed upon meeting Paul Chek in 2006 and being introduced to the Weston A. Price Foundation. By using organic ingredients and free-range, humanely raised meats and poultry, the Flavor Chef is able to bring well-balanced, nutrient-dense food to the table. In other news, this week my latest peer-reviewed article, Bacterial Development of Resistance to Botanical Antimicrobials, was published on the Journal of Evolutionary Health. I will include a link to the article in the show notes. If you want to learn more about botanicals, please visit my website, 3030strong.com. I hope you're having a great week, and enjoy the show. Hello everyone, I'm super excited to have Chef Lance Roll, the Flavor Chef. Chef, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Everything is going great today. I'm enjoying the weather here in beautiful, sunny Southern California.
So, Chef, I like to start my show by sharing your hero's journey. How did you go from being Lance Roll to Chef Lance Roll and then eventually being in this space of nutrition and health?
The chef journey started from being born inside of me, truthfully. I learned early on that I was good with food. I enjoyed around the grill times, long barbecues on Long Island where I grew up, and always making food for my friends and kind of around it. My mom was European and European background, and so we had a garden, and every year we had a beautiful summer garden, and I really enjoyed that. And, sometime I went through college, and I was into a band called the Grateful Dead, so I'm a big Deadhead. I've got Deadhead logo on my packaging, even this little happy dancing bear. And I was cooking from show to show in the mid '80s, making hummus sandwiches, and I had people come up to me, in whatever state of mind they were in. Oh my God, you have the best hummus on tour, So I really thought at one point hummus might be the key to world hunger. Then I was graduated from college, and I got kind of career counseled into cooking. I was out on the east end of Long Island, and this was in 1988, and I was taken in by a slow food restaurant. So I was in a slow food restaurant, supported Damari, and we would learn from a chef, a European trained chef. So anyway, I was in that mode, and I've been cooking. I was cooking for about 18 years. We just fast forward to 2006. I had spent the last 3 years, 2004, 5, and 6, in a culinary school teaching culinary. And, of course, all those years I was classically trained. And in 2006, I was going through a divorce and from my first marriage and my old life. And I was introduced to a gentleman named Paul Chek. Paul Chek is a holistic health practitioner, very famous, and you may or not. I'll introduce him to your audience. And he has a book called How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. And I was going to be cooking for his people, the Czech practitioners, coming to town and catering for their events. And he handed me a book called Nourishing Traditions.
Oh, that book is fantastic. The Weston A. Price book.
Yes, the Weston A. Price book. So he handed me that book and said, if you're going to cook for my people, you're going to cook from this book. And you're going to cook organic food. You're going to cook food you can get at the farmer's market. And you're going to cook, this is the way you're going to cook for my people. And he had a couple other things we had to do. He was on this rotation diet stuff and some metabolic typing and things. But for the most part, he wanted really solid tasting food, good food prepared well and all those things. Anyway, so I started reading Nourishing Traditions, and I devoured that book, and I was in that transition. So I transitioned from sort of traditional cooking to organic cooking, because the whole premises was, we got to go back to organic food. We've got to go back to, again, I was introduced, I said in the beginning, at a slow food restaurant where we were, we were getting wild caught fish off of Montauk Point. We were taking in locally hunted deer and creating venison, and we were using pheasant and quail. And chefs nowadays, we don't get that opportunity. I was very blessed to be in that opportunity. I was cooking with a woman who was 75 years old and speaking English, from Italy. And we were doing all kinds of things with vegetables and fun stuff. But here I am getting this book from Paul Chek, and Guillermo, I'm sort of just suck in this book. And like you said, it's a great book. And I come to this part about bone broth, this lost art of bone broth and the amazing, incredible benefits of bone broth. And of course, that book talks about the amazing, incredible benefits of fermenting food and sprouting nuts and properly cooking vegetables and all the different things that are in that phenomenal Bible. It's actually one of the, people ask you, if you had 10 books to have on an island, that's always one of my books I'd have.
And, just recently, I wanted to make some refried beans. And I was like, let me go check my Wise Traditions book. And of course, it gives you step-by-step how to properly prepare legumes to have less of an impact on your digestive health, so they are better digested. And they were fantastic.
Yeah, and you know what else it will tell you in there? Say cook those legumes in bone broth if you can, because the bone broth actually absorbs in. It helps. It's hydrophilic. It helps you digest the food, and it helps to make those. It helps break down the phytic acid. So you have this soaking process, and then you have this digestive process, so we can make whole grains and beans and legumes actually better for you and more absorbable. So, so I got a hold of that, and then I started investigating Weston A. Price, became a member, I read Broth is Beautiful, which was one of the early articles in one of the journals, and that's what did it all, man. And, we talked a little bit already about God and intuition and what, people might call the still small voice or the universe, or they might call it, whatever they want to call it, something that they're answering to. And on November 11th, 11/11/07, to be precise, I know that because 3 or 4 years ago, I went back to try to find that inspirational day, and I found that Word doc I had written, and I went home. I was at a little market here in San Diego called Cardiff Market. I was in that parking lot and literally got a vision from God to bring bone broth to the market. And I was kind of like going, are you talking to me? And I went home, wrote this article called the Stark article, how I was going to do this thing, and literally ended up pursuing that path. I had met my bride, my beautiful soulmate, Susanna, and so she embarked on this journey with me too. Of course, I was cooking for Paul Chek all the time. I started to do the bone broth for him. We were, working consistently with the Institute over those years and preparing broths for every conference and retreat for his people. I was, doing the research and development during the time. It took me about 4 years till 2011 to get bone broth in a local practitioner. She's actually now the vice president of the one of the vice presidents of the board members of the Weston A. Price Foundation. Her name is Kim Schutte, and so Kim came to me one day and said, "Chef, I need you to make some bone broth for my people, because even though they know about it, some of them are too weak to make it, and nobody really wants to make bone broth, So because it's a long process,
It's it's labor intensive. It is labor intensive.
If we've learned anything, we've learned that most people love bone broth. They believe in bone broth. Not most people. A lot of people believe in bone broth, love bone broth, make bone broth, but they're so glad they don't have to. And that's the truth, man. I mean, really, if you're out there saying, "Oh, I really don't want to do this," and we're going to give you an opportunity to go to my website with a coupon code and buy some bone broth, you will be part of the 95% of the people that do not want to make bone broth, but do want to consume bone broth. And so don't feel bad. Even Kim Schutte gets it from her friend. She does make her own, and a lot of people do. But usually there's one or two family members that are like, "Do you really have to make that again? It just stinks up the whole house," and all those kind of things. So that's how it all started. That's how I got the vision, and then I just was persevering and going through the process and being a chef that whole time and cooking organically. So
you know what? I want to take this conversation to a couple of places. One of the biggest problems that people have when they embark in this health and wellness journey is that A, they might not have a lot of time to cook, B, they might not know how to cook, or C, they have the best intentions on how to cook something, but they might not know how important each step is. The first thing that I want to tackle with this interview is, if you don't know how to cook, what can a chef teach us right now in the next 2 minutes of a good way to familiarize yourself with your kitchen, because it starts with food. How would you tell someone that has no idea where to start to get enamored with cooking?
I mean, Guillermo, you are setting me up here, and I love it. I love it because, truthfully, I have another vision that I got last summer. God is kicking me in the ass right now. I need to teach people how to cook. But because I can't teach you right now in this interview, I will tell you that food and cooking is not rocket science. And the problem we have is so many people are used to so much convenience. They're not making a relational connection to their food. That's why we're struggling with obesity, diabetes, all the food related diseases we have, because people are not connecting. This is the age of disconnection, not the age of connection. So it becomes a matter of what becomes important to you. My wife, and I've been a chef for 30 years, my wife is becoming an amazing chef, just basically going to the store, going to the farmer's market, buying organic vegetables. I've given her some tips on what to do, but the process is fairly simple. There's lots of resources you can look into. And I tell people, look, don't be afraid. You can't make a mistake.
And that's the number one,
You can't make a mistake. If you're buying, listen, the thing that you're getting at is the energy that you're transferring, your personal energy to your food, to your family, to your son, to your daughter, to your spouse, to your husband, to your grandmother, whatever you're doing. And, steaming a vegetable or putting a vegetable in a pan, and
frying an egg,
or frying an egg. And I'm telling you right now, I have a vision for teaching the world how to get back to the table, get back to the kitchen, and get their health back by taking control of what they put in their mouth, by knowing where it came from and what to basically do with it to make it taste good. And people have this fear, and it's a fear that it's just one of those things they need to get over, and you can go watch a zillion videos on how to do something. You just YouTube something, and, I just tell people, look, it doesn't take a course. It doesn't take a school. It takes one time. Go buy a piece of broccoli, go buy a dozen eggs, get a little butter in a nonstick pan, and turn on the pan and throw that egg in there and throw a little salt on it and see the magic of that. My son pulls the yolk out every time of these delicious pasture-raised eggs we get. And he's like, Daddy, yolk bite. And he'll take that entire yolk and just down it, to teach the importance to our children of connecting to the food that we're putting in our bodies. And this is something I learned from Paul Chek, and something I want to teach and share with the world. So,
and then you can go from there and expand, so you got your fried egg down, and then you have like 10 or 15 recipes that you're super good at, and that's going to be the basis for your health. And then every once in a while, you start expanding your horizons, and then you start learning, new techniques. I'm from the school of Alton Brown. I grew up, watching
Alton Brown, nice.
Yeah, Good Eats, and he tackles cooking as a science. And he's not teaching you recipes. He's teaching you ways of cooking something, and you can apply those techniques to different things, and you can expand your universe, and then it becomes second nature, and you can make these beautiful meals with these perfected techniques.
I think what I can bring to the table, it's you can say it as masterclass, you could say it as science. It's technique. Once you learn how to cook a vegetable one way, you can cook 10 vegetables. Once you learn how to make a soup, you can make 10 soups. Once you learn how to roast a roast, you can make 10 roasts. And then the amazing thing about this process is you will get addicted to making your own food, because you will realize that the food you're eating is so subpar that when you start to eat the food that you make, that you've procured, I just call it an energy exchange. The exchange of energy will be like, it's so satisfying. And you'll be like, wow, I feel really good about that. And it's just a matter of just that one step. It's like, they say it, but it's true. The journey of 1,000 steps starts with one, and you can put it in so many different ways that we've heard that cliche said. But this is where it's at. I think you made the most important point, Guillermo. Until we do that, we're relying on other people to feed us. And the key is food. I don't know if you're familiar with J.P. Sears or not.
Totally.
Of totally. And he happens to be a Czech practitioner and a good friend of mine. And I've known him for many, many years. He just did a very funny video about supplements, And I'm not going to knock supplements or say positive or negative. But, it's like we're at a point in time when he just, the ultra spiritual aspect of it is could you actually just live from supplement to supplement to supplement, and he's kind of making fun of like everyone. I don't even eat food anymore. I start with a smoothie and then I take vitamins and then I have a mineral stuff, and it's just kind of,
that video just came out. I'm going to make sure to link it because one of the coolest things that he says was, I like to put 3 powders into my smoothie. I don't care what the powders are. I just make sure there's 3 of them.
Right. Exactly. And again, it just points to that thing. And, it's this thing that's happening right now where people are just so instant that they're just disconnected. Learning has become so instant, and it's like, how much knowledge can we accumulate till we finally start using the knowledge?
Just learn a couple of techniques, simplify it. Don't try to go all out and create a gourmet meal every time. Just simplify it, get 10 recipes, and then go from there. Second, people that don't have enough time, because that's going to be another big obstacle to cure. They'll say, well, I don't have time to cook. What can you tell people that have that excuse?
Well, do you have time for... What do you have time for? Do you have time for the 1 out of 2 people getting cancer? Do you have time for treatments in a hospital? Do you have time for these other things that are going to happen when you don't take the time to take care of yourself? And again, maybe there's a few people out there that can get into a place where they can get the proper kind of food into their bodies by always buying it from somewhere. But the truth is, the time issue is just a matter of priorities. What are your priorities today? And if your priority is to fill up your day from morning to night with everything except for taking care of yourself, then that's what your priority is going to be. So for the people that don't have time, we just say, well, it's time to maybe realign your priorities. Sometimes we'll just say, okay, well, maybe we'll cook 2 or 3 times a week. And when we start to cook, a lot of times my wife and I will cook on my day off on Sundays. And in the afternoon, we'll just start making some vegetables, throw a chicken in the oven, put on a little pot of beans, cook up some rice, boil some hard-boiled eggs. And within an hour or 2, we have dinner and food for the next couple of days. So, it's just a matter of priorities when it comes down to when people that say they don't have time. So you don't have time for health. You don't have time for disease. So...
and that's when you can take advantage of a couple of shortcuts, like buying pre-made bone broth. Because one of my favorite recipes and one of the things that, like, whenever I have like a stomach, like an upset stomach, is just buying some squash, butternut, doesn't matter, cutting it into cubes, simmering the squash with some bone broth, and then taking my immersion blender to it, and I have this nice rich soup that it is so healing. Not everyone has time to make a batch of bone broth that is going to take you, no lie, 24 to 48 hours sometimes. But there's enough, thanks to technology, because technology is not completely evil. Now we have the infrastructure to deliver some fresh bone broth right to your house.
Correct. And so let's get something clear here too for your audience and the listeners. A little history. So where did bone broth come from, and what makes it so special? so we can digress a little bit and get back to this, but bone broth itself, this process, and we have an 18-hour process, and up to 24 hours for the beef, 18 hours for the chicken, and you can make a bone broth from fish in as little as 90 minutes. And vegetables in 90 minutes. But the point is so there's a little bit of some misnomers about that. But bone broth has been being simmered by cultures around the globe for the eons, back 5,000 years to antiquity, 5,000 years of Chinese herbal medicine. And what happened was the people had their animals wild caught or eat the meat off the bones, and they would use the skin for coats, and they wanted to do something with the rest of the animal. So they took the bones and they put them in a cauldron. They topped it with water, and then along the way it developed into let's throw some vegetables in there, or let's throw some of our roots in there, and then let's throw some of our herbs in there. Maybe we'll throw some of our our fungus in there, our mushrooms. Let's consult the shaman of the group, or the medicine doctor, or the matriarch of the group who's been doing this for years. And they created this broth, and they fed it to the infirm. They fed it to the people who are sick, because it created this beautiful bioavailable nutrients. It was the only way they could extract the nutrients from the bones without wasting the bones. And then, of course, all of that went back into the environment. It got dumped into wherever it got dumped in, and back into the soil. So it went right back in. So there was a full cycle there. And what was happening was people in that condition, having difficulty, having challenges, were recovering because of the bioavailability and the nutrient density of that elixir that was being made. And a lot of it, they didn't have the science back then. They had the intuitive knowledge to know that the marrow of the bones is what contains the life. Life is in the blood. I was on Fox TV here in San Diego in 2012, October of 2012, and that's on my YouTube channel. And I will repurpose that video again, because 2012, I was talking to bone broth and pretty much talking to nobody, because nobody really knew what bone broth was or even cared to even understand what it was. And of course, like I said at the beginning, I got this vision from God in 2007 to bring it to the market. So we've been working with different practitioners and nutritional consultants. But it was a thing, Guillermo. It was the thing. It was this thing, this beautiful food, this ancient food, this traditional healing food that, again, it was made in a certain way. It was basically artisan crafted from incredible ingredients, from good water, from organic animals, wild caught animals, and organic vegetables, because everything was organic. There was no processed food. There was no chemicals in the soil.
There was no CAFO venison.
There were no CAFOs out there. There was just what people had, and that was for the centuries prior to our current age. So that's an important thing to remember for your audience when they're purchasing bone broth. So bone broth is, again, the bone broth we make is made in that way. It's traditional, it's artisan, it's crafted with Palomar Mountain spring water, which I am the only broth on the market crafted with spring water. And it's made in a way to maximize the nutrient density and the bioavailability of the nutrients that you're taking in. So I like to say not all bone broths are created equal. As Paul Chek would say, buyer beware. He would say to me, Chef Lance, what do you think they're putting in that 39-cent hamburger? Or you got Carl's Jr. out there saying, introducing the all-natural burger, which just made me say automatically, and this was probably, I might have been the only one, or maybe there was others who said, well, if that's the all-natural burger, then what's the other burger? And now I got Arco doing the same thing. I'm going to Arco and get my gas, and it's like, oh, we have the all-natural 2 for $3.35 hamburgers that you put in the microwave in their store to eat. I'm just like, and it's all natural. But it doesn't mean anything, because obviously we know about that, but the truth be told, again, just buyer beware. Quality is worth everything you put into it, time and effort, and we take that time to simmer at a low, slow temperature. This was the other key to healing bone broths. They were simmered at a very low temperature. What Dr. Kayla Daniel, who along with Sally Fallon wrote a second book. They wrote a couple of books, but the book was called Nourishing Broth. And Nourishing Broth came out just before the trend hit in 2014, around September. And I will make a nice little plug for myself here again. I was actually featured in that book. My broths were featured in the mineral analysis in that book. My low and slow, my 2-hour broth and my long cooked broth were both featured in the mineral analysis in that book because there were no other bone broths out there. That's a place, again, another resource for your folks to go out and learn about bone broth, the benefits of bone broth, and how to make it if they like to. So, but yeah, that comes full circle to 2014, and this bone broth trend we're in right now, and the popularity of this magical healing elixir.
In the late 80s, early 90s, when the low-fat, high protein or sugar trends came around, people were super scared of cholesterol, and they started eating lean meat. The problem is that humans are not made of just lean meat. We have collagen, we have bones, we have tendons, and not a lot of people are eating nose to tail. And so we are missing out on very important building blocks of human body. And bone broth is a very easy way of consuming those building blocks.
Absolutely, because as Dr. Kayla Daniels said, that it's what we have in bone broth again is we have food, Guillermo. Food. Food is an important concept. We've been talking about it a lot, but you have bioavailable collagen in type 1, type 2, and type 3, all in one thing. And that collagen is the building blocks of your body. So we talk about one of the benefits is this joint and bone health. And you're literally consuming, liquid bone. You're extracting the hyaluronic acid, the glucosamine, the chondroitin from those bones. Bone broth has been described by some folks out there, Dr. Kate Shanahan and Deep Nutrition, as a smart food. So, it goes to where it needs it. So that building blocks that you're talking about are what is being simmered out of bone broth in a well-made bone broth.
And and that's one of the coolest things, that just like you said, you can add it to anything. Like if you're making beans, you can add bone broth instead of water. If you're making a curry, you can use some bone broth to thicken it. It can be used. It's so versatile. Some things you have to supplement. There's some supplements out there that, like magnesium is not readily available, even if you're consuming like super organic food, because the soil has been so depleted. But whenever there's a chance of you eating a food that will substitute a supplement, for example, bone broth instead of taking MSM and chondroitin, or calcium, bone broth has calcium. Bone broth, if you didn't know, for my audience, bones are made up of different minerals, magnesium being one of them, calcium being another one. If you're consuming bone broth, you are consuming those minerals as a food source. It's like when people want to supplement with a bunch of omega-3 fatty acids. Well, those omega-3 fatty acids don't quite make it to the cell. But if you're eating a food such as cod liver oil, that's going to be more bioavailable. It's a lower dose, so you have to consume it more often, but it's going to get to where it needs to go.
And I will just make a statement here too, and I'm not trying to contradict you, Guillermo, but we did learn from that it's hard to extract calcium from bones, and so many of the bone broths out there, you'll see a very low calcium, but there is what they call a matrix of minerals and trace minerals, and your body can't absorb those things independent of itself. So we want to be careful of anything called an isolate, because nothing is actually isolated. Everything is actually part of something. So, we like to say you are what you eat. At bonebroth.com, we say you are what you eat, but more importantly, you are what you absorb. If you quickly eat a piece of steak and it goes into your system and it's a big giant piece of meat, runs through your system the same way. But when you break that meat down by properly chewing it and properly digesting it, putting it in, letting the enzymes get in there, getting into the good stomach acid, getting those enzymes, then your body utilizes that. And one thing that bone broth has is it has an incredible amount of matrix that will help you. Originally, one of my 10 top benefits of bone broth is called synergy. And synergy is simply things working together for the ultimate benefit of whatever it's working together towards. So the minerals, the amino acids, the collagen, the gelatin, the protein, the different things that are in the bone broth. So with bioavailability, nutrient density, and the synergy, like we've been talking about so much here already, is just that it helps you absorb all those things. If you're kale has way more calcium than bone broth. And you can just look on things that have lots of kale in it, and you'll see huge amounts of calcium. Or those dark leafy green vegetables, collards, broccoli, almost the whole cruciferous family. Huge amounts of those minerals. Of course, again, caveat is we're just talking about organic, folks. We're not talking about things that are not organic. And that's certified organic, USDA certified organic. So all those things together, man, and now you're absorbing everything. Your supplement routine has gotten 20 or 30% more absorbability, and you're getting healthier and you're optimizing your health.
Okay, so now to segue to the third part of my question that we talked about, what are the steps that you're taking in order to make sure that all these nutrients are bioavailable in your bone broth? For example, are you acidifying the bones before you cook them?
Yes. So what our process is very traditional and based on the Nourishing Traditions, Nourishing Broth model. So we have a component of apple cider vinegar and lemons in our chicken broth, and just apple cider vinegar in our beef broth. And what that does is it actually helps to start the mineral withdrawal extraction. So I don't know, again, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know exactly why that works, but we have that acid component. We had lemons for a flavor component, but of course it has an acid component to help draw the minerals out. The next thing that is very important to your audience is, how is the process done? It's a low and slow simmer between 2 and I have videos of this on my YouTube page as well, of me showing you the low simmer, the gurgle that Dr. Kayla Daniel talks about in the book. That low, slow gurgle is that low, slow extraction of pulling out all the marrow and all of the good stuff that's in there. I have a very good relationship with Dr. Tom O'Brien as well. I'm name dropping a little bit, but he's a good friend of mine. He's a good friend of mine, and he's done some amazing work in the world of autoimmunity and autoimmune awareness and the Gluten Summit. And Dr. Tom loves my bone broth. He's there on my website endorsing me because of first of all, the way I source everything, and second of all, the way I make everything. So we don't have a big glutamate development. Glutamates develop in high pressure, fast cooked, high temperature broths. So you want to be real careful of that too. And
well, so let me stop you right there, because this is super important for people that have, excitatory problems. Because glutamate, people bash MSG, monosodium glutamate. Well, glutamate that would develop in bone broth wouldn't be that much different. And what glutamate does, you have your excitatory amino acids, and you have your relaxing amino acids. And glutamate happens to be an excitatory amino acid. And what are some of the problems that people can develop if they consume too much glutamate?
Yeah, basically, it's a brain fog thing. You're basically going to get this pretty big brain fog, and I'm highly sensitive to glutamate. Personally, I learned a long time ago that Doritos were really bad for me, and I swear, if I took a piece of a Dorito, and I've done this through, I've gone through food shows and things, and I'll taste something and it'll say all these things on there. And so buyer beware out there, man. And, anything that's in a box, all these box bone broths out there, they're all heated to 275 degrees for sterilization. They literally sterilize the product, and then they say, well, we can keep it for 2 years now on the shelf. Well, you just sterilize it. So I don't know if that's going to be any good, but 275 degrees will bring that process forward. So yeah, so the excitotoxins, glutamate, all those other ones that are out there, all the natural flavors, yeast extracts, anything that has natural flavor on it is you want to avoid. It's basically MSG, and of course, MSG for your audience is a man-made product that mimics what the glutamate does, and
But like times 1,000.
by tens of thousands, exactly. So you get this tiny little bit, like I said, a little bit on a thing. So just buyer beware as well on the bone broth protein powders. I mean, you can go on their website. I will put this out publicly as well pretty soon, but is a high heat, high pressure method. So people ask me, we can talk about this too. People ask me, do you like the Instapot or do you like the pressure cooking bone broth? And I have never made bone broth in a pressure cooker or an Instapot. Some people tell me they're successful to it. And I just say, be careful and watch what you're doing, because of course, we all throw out our microwaves. Of course, don't microwave ever anything. And again, unfortunately, I know a great company. I'm not going to mention them here, but they mention on there, simple, just throw our bag into the microwave if you're running short on time. I'm just like, are you kidding me? You guys got a good product. You told people to microwave it? Oh my God, in the plastic? Oh my God, no, don't do that. You guys are good people.
Because bone broth has really good fats too. And all of those estrogenic compounds in the bag are fat soluble. So if you're heating it up in that plastic bag, now you're leaching this fake estrogens into your super healing food.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a very clear in our packaging. So I'll let your audience know right now as well, bonebroth.com. So we have a process, and this is part of it as well. We cool all of our bone broths within 3 hours from the kettle to 41 degrees or less. We use BPA-free packaging because we have a flexographic packaging, and our broths are generally made regularly, so we don't have a long inventory. We don't want a long shelf life on our bone broth. When you buy a box bone broth, the first layer in the box is plastic. It's called polypropylene, supposedly a good plastic. The next layer is aluminum foil, and it gets put in there hot. Gosh, it's like, what are you guys trying to do? Oh, they're trying to make money, obviously, and they're good marketers. But the point being is, for your audience and who's going to download this talk, we take the time. I mean, I'm not taking any chances with my health, and I'm not taking any chances with yours. I want to live to be a long time. I want to recover. I want to heal the planet. Our mission is to heal the planet one GI tract at a time. So that's our mission. That was from a long time ago. Our vision is to restore. At this point, our vision has changed a bit, to restore the art and craft of traditional healing food, and ours being bone broth, because we have to actually already restore that art and craft in our bone broth world. So because of all the high pressure stuff that's going on, and high pressure pasteurization and all these different things that people are doing to get shelf stability and marketability and all these things, I'm like, no. People ask me all the time, you're going to powder your bone broth, chef? I'm like, no. Bone broth doesn't come from a powder. It's food. Powders are sold in the supplement section.
Wow, and that is so important, because you might do an Instapot bone broth, and if you have a healthy person, that might not be a too big of a deal. But when you're trying to use bone broth for like deeper chronic conditions, such as, like a GAPS diet where you start with bone broth and now you're using this bone broth for someone with autism or for someone that has like deep chronic GI problems, they try it, they get more mental fog, and instead of blaming the process, they're blaming the bone broth. And then they'll say things like, oh, I've tried bone broth in the past, it didn't work. Well, maybe you didn't try the right bone broth.
And let me interject something right here. We manufacture 2-hour meat broth. That's what's in Nourishing Broth. It's extremely low glutamate, high in protein, low glutamate. It has a lot less amino acids, because, when someone's in that condition, you mentioned GAPS diet, that's why I brought it up. We have a GAPS phase 1 2-hour meat broth, we call it. We don't call it GAPS broth because it's a trademarkable thing. But the 2-hour meat broth is for that exact person. And we don't sell that much of it. I probably should get the word out a little bit clearer to people. We probably sell more of it. But the fact is if someone in your audience right now is struggling and has had that experience with bone broths, we serve them the 2-hour meat broth, and that is the formula that Dr. Campbell McBride and myself with Kim Schutte formulated to. It's in her book, the GAPS Gut and Psychology Syndrome, her book, and we formulated a bone broth based on what we call the GAPS Phase 1 protocol. And that is an incredibly delicious bone broth, incredibly gelatinous, and I can't say enough good things about it. So that is available as well at bonebroth.com. And again, that's something, you brought it up, and I'm just telling you, man, we are the only, you cannot find it anywhere. And I'm thinking just right to myself right now, like, I've just got to make this thing more prominent because there's many people that need this product.
Well, can you give me a list of the people that would benefit from eating the 2-hour meat broth versus a high pressure or long bone broth?
Right. So the longer cooking. So when you have a gut and psychology syndrome, you have a some sort of basically could be extreme autoimmune condition. Again, everyone's at a different place in their healing journey, because even on the GAPS diet, you advance at some point after you heal the gut.
And that's the goal, to eventually be able to have like more glutamate or more things that but you got to start somewhere.
Right. So when you're in that thing, so you're looking at someone maybe with severe depression, anxiety, and all the psoriasis. Maybe you have someone, and again, you mentioned autism. So I'll just let everyone know I have told Documenting Hope, which is going to be this autism project, that I would provide all the bone broth for their entire long study. Now they're behind a little bit in terms of getting the study going, but when they do, I will be providing 2-hour meat broth for about 14 kids on the spectrum for as long as they need it for free, for part of this thing. And part of my mission is to help heal. Autism is something that is, I think it's as crazy as 1 in 3 kids at this point are going to get it. And there's all kinds of information and research on why that happens and who that is and what those kids are going through. But one of the relational things is back to the gut and healing their gut. So we have this 2-hour low glutamate, low amino acid in general, because all the minerals and amino acids, again, are potentially a difficult thing for the body to assimilate and cause problems when they're there. If it's overly mineralized or over amino acids, and that's all of them. So when you only do it for 2 hours, you develop a lot less. Nourishing Broth has the research done in it there, and that was done on my 2-hour meat broth. So that's there for people. So we mentioned a few of them. A few of the things that 2-hour meat broth would be good for. And again, what it comes down to, again, without making a clear defining statement, is this is a practitioner-involved person. This is a person who's seeking a nutritional therapist, a nutrition clinician, a clinical nutritionist, a consultant, a GAPS practitioner, a wellness coach of some kind, who has actually, said, yeah, this is what you need to get to help heal this particular condition.
Yeah,
so,
this is not a Dr. Google or Nurse Facebook kind of a thing. This is where you actually need someone that has experience with this type of condition in order to help you advance through the steps and gaps.
And let me bring this out as well. This is a really important thing to state. Bone broth is part of a protocol. So it's not a silver bullet. A lot of people out there are taking this bone broth trend and saying, drink bone broth, you're healed. And, it's simply put, even in all the Nourishing Broth testimonies of healing, and that book's full of healings, it's always part of a protocol. It's part of being healthy. Are you drinking enough water? Are you getting 20 minutes of sunshine a day? Do you stick your feet on the earth?
Are you sleeping?
Are you sleeping? Oh my God, rest. Paul Chek and the rest of the wellness crowd. Yes. It's been proven you need to rest. That's where your body recovers. And some of the anxiety and things that are out there cause people not to sleep. Then they put them on drugs that have symptoms, and there are natural ways to get better sleep. One of them is just by putting your feet on the earth, directly your feet, bare feet, no shoes, no socks, no concrete, you and the ground. and it's called grounding or earthing. And again, so Guillermo, this is part for your people. I can't stress this enough. This is part of a protocol, a part of wellness. When we talk about, right now, the cool thing about Mindshare and the places that we're familiar with, Dr. Alan Christensen, your mentor, is it's never about a silver bullet. It's never about a quick fix. It's about an overall look of a person's thing. There's a couple different systems out there, but Paul Chek has the 4 doctors: Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet, Dr. Movement, and Dr. Happy. And these are the last 4 doctors you'll ever need. And there's other systems that have kind of a similar holistic approach. So we get our diet correct. We start eating organic food. We start eating more vegetables and maybe less meat. We start eating, grass-fed, grass-finished things. We start adding bone broth to our diet. We start properly hydrating in the morning. You think about waking up in the morning and, proper hydration. Well, what does that mean? And, you wake up 6, 7, 8 hours after you sleep and your body hasn't drank any water. Start the metabolism. Drink that beautiful spring water. Bring that clear, beautiful water that has unadulterated, and start your day off that way. Spend 10 minutes just breathing and meditating into your heart and loving yourself and thinking about the way things are going. I took a picture on my Instagram page, and people can like me on Instagram at The Flavor Chef. And I took a picture of my new house, and thank God I have a functional coach. I had a functional coach for a while. Functional meaning functional exercise. And so I work with my body weight. I do push-ups and sit-ups, and I do some infant movements, and I use a Swiss ball and a couple dumbbells, and I use the graphs, and I do bear crawls and these different basic movements. And I took a picture of my new gym. You know what my new gym was? It was out my back door. I got grass. I got the sunrise. I drank my water. And now I got movement. And, Paul Chek once told me, I got to keep mentioning him because I love this guy and he's an amazing guy. And hey, the first thing you need to do, take 20 minutes a day and go for a walk on the beach, go for a walk in nature, connect to yourself. And that might be the start of your journey, a little bit of movement, because they do these assessments. You talk to people, you find out they sit in a chair all day with their head hunched over and their keyboard and their electronics right there. And by the end of the day, they're just so wiped out. Their adrenals are gone. They drank 4 cups of coffee. They haven't drank any water. They're completely depleted. And a cup of water and 10 minutes of silence would probably do them pretty good, don't check in. And then there's this Dr. Happy, this spiritual aspect to your life, and are you in a good relationship? Are you in a good relationship with yourself? What's your mind? What's your thoughts? What are you saying to yourself all day long? I'm good, I'm bad, I'm terrible, I'm fat, I'm skinny, I'm ugly. No, change those thoughts to positive things. God made you who you are. I'm who I, and start with those type of things, so.
Now, you keep mentioning water, and you said something about yours being the only bone broth that is made with spring water. Why is that important for our audience?
Well, again, basically bone broth is water, bones simmered in water. And, again, I would just refer people, you want to know about water, punch it in, good water, bad water. You will see YouTube videos about the quality of our water. It is terrible. I mean, we have Flint, Michigan. We have all these municipalities that are putting fluoride in the water, chlorine in the water, not filtering the water correctly, even just to get to your tap. And again, when I started this journey to make a healing bone broth to help heal people, I started with Carlsbad mineral spring water. They couldn't supply it. I went to Palomar Mountain Water. It's one of the top 5 waters in the world. It's an hour away from where I am. They put it through it comes out of an artesian well, 700-800 feet deep in the ground, millennia years old. The water is as pure as you can get. And the importance is that when someone says they make their broth with water, no good, bueno, no bueno. Water, what does that mean? It means nothing. It means that they use tap water. One of my nutritional therapist friends told me once, triple filtered doesn't mean anything either, because we don't know what kind of filter it is. We don't know how pure that water is. We don't know what the water started to be. What kind of filters is it used? How often do they change the filters? What's the quality of that water when it comes through the filter? So again, for me, I just take no chances. I go right to the source. I got it on my page, a link to what that Palomar water is all about. It's one of the top, like I said, in 2012, it was called one of the top 5 waters in the world. It's the only water my mentor will drink. And, again, it's one of those situations where it's just we're made of 70% water. Our bodies are 70% water. The earth is 70% water. So again, I don't know why no other companies have chosen to use spring water for their product. Probably because it's 75 cents a gallon. I mean, I pay 75 cents a gallon.
And what about people that use reverse osmosis water?
I'm not a water expert. I've heard it's pretty good, but my mentor doesn't care for it. So around Southern California, the problem is reverse osmosis water wastes a lot of water. There's a whole process to get rid of the water that the reverse osmosis uses. So it takes a long time. You have to have a great system, and the reverse osmosis water wastes a lot of water to get to your RO water. So we can't afford to waste water here in Southern California. So.
Well, one of the biggest problems, according to the World Health Organization, is that when you take all of the minerals, it's basically virgin water. It has nothing. So when people drink it, it actually is a little bit more dehydrating than drinking mineral water or spring water that has naturally occurring minerals.
Wow, wow, I didn't even know that. So essentially you're starting with a dead water.
Basically, in this water, it tastes really pristine because there's nothing on it. So if you look at a water bottle, that you buy at the store, it'll say filter from municipal sources with added minerals, and they add the minerals to make it taste a little bit better, but it's basically tap water that has been stripped of everything. So if anyone out there is drinking RO water, you can go online and actually buy mineral drops on Amazon or wherever you shop, and you put these drops into your water, and it's remineralizing your water. It's going to taste a little bit salty, but that's what that's what spring water tastes like. It has a really distinct taste, and after you drink it for a while, you miss that taste.
I will just give a plug to findaspring.com, and apparently you can. And I have a spring. I use Palomar Mountain spring water, so it's right here. And findaspring.com, and you get all that. Our water goes through a UV treatment. That's it. That's what's required. A UV light to do whatever it does to any water has to be done that way. And then it goes through a micron filter, which just filters out any particles or sediment that might be in there, into a stainless steel truck, down to our tanks, and from our tanks into our stainless steel kettles. So it's a pretty cool thing, and I didn't know all that about RO water, so I'm excited to share that as well, and super glad that I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, no, I'm totally gonna, I'll link at the WHO report that, first, one of the biggest problems in underdeveloped countries is finding clean water. Okay, so clean water is the most important thing, but if you have clean water, not drinking RO water is the second most important thing. And I'll make sure to post that WHO report on this interview. So we talked about the demineralization of the bones. We talked about why it's important to cook slow and low. We talked about the importance of water. You called your bone broth synergistic. Are you using any synergistic blends of spices that you can talk about?
Yeah, sure. Well, we have a couple of different bone broths on the website. We have a full classic bone broth, which has carrots, celery, onions, garlic, ginger, bay leaves, peppercorns, thyme, parsley, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, and lemons, and the lemons and the apple cider vinegar. So that's our main classic bone broth. And again, you are going to get, somebody said, where's the 2 sugars come from? I said, well, that comes from the carrots. The sodium, we don't have any added salt to either of our chicken bone broth products. So the beef bone broth is soup bones roasted. And then we, from grass-fed, grass-finished, certified organic cows that actually grow on Palomar Mountain, and they graze up there for 28 to 32 months. All the animals are certified humane, which means they're treated well in both categories, chicken and beef. And The beef broth has everything the same except we don't use lemons. Then we have two what we call AIP products, which stands for autoimmune protocol. Those are both, and again, the chicken broth is 18 hours, and the beef broth is 24. Because the beef bones are bigger, they need long-term extraction. And if you do make bone broth yourself, I don't personally believe that anything beyond 24 hours is necessary. And I will make a statement here as well for your audience that anyone who commercially makes bone broth and claims they make it for 48 hours and can sell it for less than me is bullshitting you. So, because it's just economically impossible. And I know because I do it every day. And it's not necessary. It's not necessary. So then we have the AIP product, which just have carrot, celery, and parsley. Our classic beef broth has a small amount of real salt, but our chicken broths our AIP products don't have any salt at all. But I love real salt, real brand sea salt. It's out of Utah, and you can go on their website for why they're better than Celtic or Himalayan. And I'm not going to tell you which salt to use, and those are very good salts, and many health practitioners love those salts, and there's reasons they love them. But for me personally, I brand with real brand sea salt, and we don't put any in the chicken or the chicken broth at all. We don't put any in our AIP broth because it is also available for pets, which can't have too much sodium. The sodium component comes from the celery. But again, the process. So we have the 2-hour meat broth, which is also just carrot and celery. Again, because that person might be covering with onions and garlic and other things. So we only have 2 hours to make it. So we just use carrot, celery, bones, chicken meat, and of course our spring water and a small amount of salt in that one. And then we have our coconut, ginger, mint, and lemon soup, which is our AIP chicken bone broth, simmered, filtered, back in the kettle, bare simmer again. Very important. No boiling of bone broth ever. And then we infuse a lot of ginger, a lot of lemon, and then a lot of mint. And we finish with coconut milk, which never gets heated until you heat it at home. And that soup is amazing. People love that soup. I created that soup on digestion sessions a couple of years ago with Sean Croxton. And I'm going to repurpose those videos too pretty soon as well because they're really good. But anyway, the point being is those are and we have a vegan, actually. We're working on a vegan product. I met some vegans this weekend, and we're going to be working on bringing our no bone broth to everybody.
Now, for people out there that are concerned about trace amounts of heavy metals in bone broth, what do you know about that, and what can you educate my audience on that concern?
Great question. We have our broths lab analyzed. Literally, I don't know if it's on the website yet, but within the last month, we've had both our broths twice tested, 2 labs, negative metals, negligible. Whatever the metals are, I think we tested 5 metals. Let me tell your audience, every metal costs you money to test. So we tested 4, the main one being lead, because we get that all the time. So yeah, so we have no metals in our broths. I can't claim anything for the other broths. Apparently there's some chickens out there, or if you get a product maybe that's made from non-organic chickens that are eating crappy food, maybe eating arsenic and different things, there's a potential that they could have a lot of metal in their systems. Our chickens and our beef, 0 metals, 0 microbes. We got them tested for that as well. And we'll have that information on the website.
I have read a couple of articles where they were testing, and the concern is that when you have a big animal like a cow and they are eating all of this stuff and they might have trace amounts of heavy metals, it bioaccumulates in a couple of places, fat and bone. And in the paleo community, we are big proponents of increasing our fat intake, and we are big proponents on drinking bone broth. So it was a concern, but what didn't get stratified with this studies was were the animals completely 100% grass fed, and I'm glad that you've gone through those lengths to show that there are no heavy metals in your bone broth.
Exactly. Again, it's like, I'm not taking any chances with my health. I'm not taking any chances with I consume this stuff every day. I feed it to my wife. I feed it to my son. And, heavy metals are a toxic part of our environment right now. I mean, there are obviously documented studies about aluminum toxicity, and I just want everyone to know out there that you can do whatever you want with your bone broth, but when you put it in a Tetra Pak, and Pacific brand puts it in their Tetra Pak, and we have 2 years shelf life, the second layer, the layer that keeps that pack waterproof, is aluminum foil. Packed hot, sealed, good for 2 years, sterilized aluminum foil. And I just told my operations manager that I'm going to buy some of them, and I'm going to send them to the lab and see if there's metal in those broth.
And what do you? How is your broth packaged?
The packaging process for us, not taking any chances. We have a BPA-free bag. I have a letter from the manufacturer that our bags are free of bisphenol, whatever it's called. And again, there comes a place where you have to sort of make a line in the sand, and for me to be a viable entity, I have to do things that are economical. For me to store 6,000 jars in a warehouse would be advisable. I can't get them back, and they actually take up more space in the environment. So we use a BPA-free bag. We pack at 41 degrees or less. 2 things that cause leaching: time and temperature. We bring our broth from the kettle to 41 degrees or less, and then we package it in stainless steel machinery. Again, it's a process that I take super seriously. And then we freeze the broth instantly. We don't have an instant freezer, but we put it in the freezer. Within 24 hours, it's frozen, and then we ship it to you. A couple weeks ago, we ran out of coconut soup. A couple weeks ago, we ran out of beef broth, and we're pretty much on a low inventory of our chicken bone broth products. So time and temperature. We don't get above 41 degrees when we pack. Our broths are relatively young. You'll get a broth that'll be good for 6 months. The date might be 1/18/2018. That means we made the broth on 6/18 of 2017. And now you got companies, again, frozen bone broth companies, putting 9 months expirations on their products, and when they're doing that because they need because the retailers are telling them to do that. And I'm saying I ain't going to those retailers. I'm not in Whole Foods. I don't want 9 months shelf life. I got a 6-month shelf life. And I don't even want it to be on the 6 months. I want you to drink it. I want to be out of broth and making more broth. And that's the way it always is done, man. And it's just like, I got a message to give people, man. And I gotta synergize it down to 5 minutes.
So, what are some recipes that you like with your bone broth?
I'm actually going to give you guys bonebroth.com/free gift. We're going to put up a PDF up there with 10 recipes.
Awesome.
People will go there, sign up, and get the sign up for our email list, and they'll get the recipes in the mail. But we have a beautiful breakfast bone broth, a cup of bone broth, two quick soft eggs, and some ghee. You can add vegetables. I add fresh spinach, some fresh peas. Put in a little leftover cooked veggies. We do a nice little braise with our carrots. We make a carrot soup, but like you said, a butternut squash soup is amazing. We have a great recipe for that. Almost any soup can be made with bone broth. We braise chicken with bone broth, and we have a beautiful, like with our coconut soup, we make the tom kha. And so I have a recipe for tom kha as well. Simple recipe that we recommend using our coconut bone broth for. And we even we have a recipe just to make the ultimate cup of bone broth with like a coconut manna or coconut butter stirred in, and some ghee and some cayenne pepper and a little sprig of mint and some of my lemon zest, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, one of my favorite recipes is to make some roasted Brussels sprouts with some onions and some carrots, a cup of bone broth, and chili pepper flakes. That's it.
Yeah, and then we like to add. I do that. I will provide the bone broth braised Brussels sprouts, and you're welcome to add carrots to that, and chili peppers if you like it hot. And it sounds like you like it hot, which is good. And then we have our braised kale, our braised green. I have a master recipe for greens. So again, a master recipe is saying, look, we can do any greens this way. And we are focusing on kale, collards, things that are really difficult to actually digest unless they're cooked properly.
Collards with some ham hocks. Oh, man.
Yeah, and I put, we go to grass-fed, grass-finished, humanely raised. I don't use too much pork in almost any of my recipes, but in that one I do. And it's like one of those things. Again, it's like kind of, to me, it's like a food that I've just gotten away from because I can't get it well enough. It's just not a good product. Paul Chek doesn't eat any pork at all, and for many reasons. But again, if you can get a pasture-raised source, and I can get pasture-raised bacon from my local farmers market here in California, then I use that, a little couple chunks of that, to get that beautiful smoky flavor. And or just I use coconut oil, or I use some of my beef tallow. We sell the beef tallow on the website, so that's great for cooking in, and or the chicken fat, great for cooking in as well.
One of my favorite things to do with bone broth is actually do cleanses, and I'll do like 3 days where I drink nothing but bone broth. And you get like you go into a little bit of ketosis. You get that mental fog completely washes away. You lose a little bit of weight, but the amino acids and all the nutritional components of the bone broth don't let they don't let your thyroid go into hypothyroid mode. So it protects your thyroid because you're still getting some calories. And that's one of my favorite things to do with bone broth. I do it a couple of times a year.
We call it brothing, and it's the new juicing. And my friend Krista does some juice fasts and stuff, adds the bone broth for that exact reason. You get that protein sparing effect of the bone broth, and you get that satiated feeling. You're not as hungry, and you lose weight. I mean, I've lost 20 something pounds in the last couple of months here, and I'm on my way to my high school fighting weight.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it includes definitely regular exercise and
sleep and happiness and
a lot
grounding.
Of self-love and a lot of sleep. And I tell people, fortunately for me, bone broth grows on trees. So you got to go to bonebroth.com. And Guillermo, what do you want to do for a code for your folks? Let's make one up right here.
What about 3030 strong?
3030 strong. I like it. Yeah.
Perfect.
3030 strong. Just enter that, and we'll do a 10% off. Anyone who wants to order bone broth at bonebroth.com, and we will recommend free shipping at 10 units or more. So you can imagine you're getting 10 amazing bone broths in the mail, whichever 10 you want. They're not costing you anything in shipping. They will be at that point under around $12.50 a unit, which is about the same price you paid in the store. So that's pretty incredible.
Well, that's very nice of you. So where can people follow you? What are your handles? How can people get a hold of you if they want to interview you?
Reach me on Facebook at The Flavor Chef. Everything is at The Flavor Chef. So I am The Flavor Chef. Instagram at The Flavor Chef. Bonebroth.com is our website. And I say bonebroth.com. Need I say more? I bought that. And people, how much did you pay for that domain? I'm like, I paid $9.99 in 2008.
That's awesome.
It's like I bought that domain for $9.99 in 2008. So yeah, bonebroth.com is the website. We're going to resurrect theflavorchef.com soon as well. But for right now, at The Flavor Chef on Facebook, you can personally send a request to Lance Roll if you want, and I'll probably accept your friend request. And that's where you can find me. Instagram, and firing up YouTube, Flavor Chef as well. You can check out about 15 or 20 videos I have on there already. So.
Well, Chef, I didn't expect to learn so much about something that I'm a big proponent of. I didn't know about the glutamate content. I didn't know that there was different levels of bone broth for each individual GAPS step. This has been fascinating.
Thank you. And I'm pretty much the sought-after expert in this field at this point. Been speaking more than anyone on podcasts, and I love to share this information, especially in a balanced way, Guillermo, a balanced way. It's not like I'm just going out there, buy bone. No, it's a balanced way. It's a balanced approach to health and life and longevity, and optimal living.
Yeah, and thank you for submitting those samples for heavy metal testing, because that has been, weighing heavy on me and my recommendations with bone broth. Well, Chef, we run in the same circle, so I'm sure we're going to run into each other sooner than later.
Absolutely, sir. I appreciate you as well, and I'm glad I was on the show. I can't wait for the next one and the next time we meet. So I look forward to it. And I have a finishing tagline. I trademarked this as well. Love is the ultimate spice, and that just says it all, man. Without love, you have nothing, and love is everything. And just go out there and love your neighbor, love yourself, and love God above all things. So.
Well, thank you so much for the interview.
You're welcome, sir. Take care.